Welcome to Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Two gals on the prowl for enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Holy Fuck. Each week, beauty alchemist and transformational coach and speaker, Katherine McClellan, and spiritual healer and life coach, Krista Kim, discuss navigating spiritual consciousness in a real human body. Stumbling through dating, relationships, and everyday life, all while maintaining a fucking sense of humor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Holy Fuck podcast. Happy New Year, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Katherine.
Thanks, Krista. You too, darling.
So, your text to me was interesting this morning. Everybody, I found this podcast I was listening to. Someone had told me about it. And I was sharing it with Katherine because I was like, oh, there's two men talking about intimacy and relationships. And since we had just done a podcast on that, I thought it was cool to hear the male perspective on it. And also I was sending it to her to go like, hey, look how they lay out their content. And, you know, he's really successful. What can we learn from that? And what was your response to me? It was like, I don't like it. Sorry. And I was like, okay, you don't have to like it, and you certainly don't have to apologize for it. And I was like, well, I'll just let it be. I won't even respond to it because I, wanted to have a in-person conversation with you about it to really explain to you what I was connecting with in it. And then when and then you sent me another text later that said,
paraphrasing here, I need more spirit in my life.
Right. And I was like, okay, so I didn't know if you were talking about, referencing the podcast and meaning like, oh, I like what they're saying, but didn't have enough spirit for me. Or I was like, well, maybe she's talking about just her life. So when I got over to Katherine's house today, I'm like, well, in my mind, I was like, how much spirit does she need? Damn, she's got a lot of spirit, if you ask me. So when I got to your house today to record the podcast, you looked like you were standing in your kitchen having a panic attack, but you can explain what was happening for you.
Yeah, I was having something for the previous hour. Right after I texted Krista that I need more spirit in my life, I had this experience of a really sharp pain in my chest around my heart, and it just wouldn't quit. And I was having lunch with someone, and the entire time I was aware that I couldn't take a full breath. And I knew from experience that it wasn't something that was super serious, like a heart attack. It was something that was an anxiety attack. Mm-hmm. And my experience over the last month since my mom has died is that I've been having increasing levels of these kinds of anxiety, which are waking me up first thing in the morning. And that could be anywhere between 4 and 7.
Right.
And it is this sort of all-consuming disconnected feeling. Like it has it's such an unusual experience for me to not feel full of spirit, full of loving, full of life and myself,
right,
who I am. And I feel like I just, the image that's coming to mind is from a movie, and I can't think of the name right this second, but I'm sure you'll remember, where the astronaut like detaches.
Oh yeah, it's like Interstellar or something.
I don't remember, but he just floats off into space, and that's the end of him, right? And that's what it feels like. It's like there's all of this energy, there's all of this possibility. Everything I know is around me, and I can't touch it. I can't feel it. So that's why I need more spirit in my life.
And I think this is brilliant because, okay, so we look back at the last 2 podcasts we've done. One was on intention setting for the holidays and creating this, special holiday for us, for whatever that means for us. And then the next podcast was going into the new year and saying, how do we manifest what we want for the new year? Well, in order to manifest, we have to go back and really let go of what is holding us back, or what's holding us back from believing we can have what we really want. And so I find it very interesting that in the week after the conversation of letting go, it feels as if, the sense in my body, even feeling your heart is something is releasing, and it's very uncomfortable.
It's extremely uncomfortable. Krista said to me, it's sort of like you're trying to up level, but you don't actually know how. So I've been doing, we talked about this last week, the ho'oponopono of I'm sorry, please forgive. And I just want to say that you can use these 4 sentences in any order you want. So I will say them in different orders because that's how they'll occur to me. But I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I've been doing that since our last podcast.
Me too.
Good. And for me, the result of that is this feeling of disconnection rather than this feeling of connection. And I'm so used to feeling connected. And it's really disconcerting. And to have this level of pain around my heart and this, so I am feel, I feel like I'm grasping at the edges of the universe, like as if I'm trying to reconnect with the mothership, and I'm floating away, and I cannot feel my experience.
And we just got finished saying that you have to let go fully in order to step into where you want to go. So this is brilliant because this is what letting go looks like. It's fucking uncomfortable. It shakes us to our core. It messes with our nervous system. It's breaking free of everything we know to be true for ourselves. And it's going, oh yeah, come over here. It's going to be okay. And we're like, no. You're asking me to like let go of who I am in order to step into my new way of being. And it's scary.
Really scary. And my physical body is scared. That's the actual experience I'm having. And so how I'm managing that is like a little more wine, a little more chocolate, a little more television. Things that
and I'm like, maybe you need a little more sex.
Well, there's that nut. Yeah, maybe.
You wish there were that
I
nut.
wish there was an opportunity right now.
Oh, I thought you said nut. There's that nut.
No, I didn't say there's that nut.
That's what I heard. I was like, well, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. Anyway, we were going 2 different directions there. But
self-soothing, I think that's what people do.
So I am definitely self-soothing. And normally, a glass of wine.
Yeah.
You know,
that's not typically you to go through all of those levels of self-soothing.
No, and self-soothing in a way that's self-sabotaging.
Right.
Because then there's weight gain and discomfort and my body's uncomfortable because there's too much sugar and I don't eat that way. And yet, of course, it's everywhere right now. And I have that's the other thing. I have no willpower. My willpower is gone.
That's the thing though. You have to I love this. You have to let go of the willpower.
I'm telling you, if you could see me, you guys, it's like my hair is standing on end. I have
vibrating.
Long hair and it's standing on end. I was just remembering something I said to Krista not that long ago about my experience of my father was that his anxiety towards the end of his life got so high and he never let go.
Right.
And his anxiety just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that it turned hallucinatory and he was visually creating visions, and he thought when he passed, he thought he was dying in a fire, and we had a fire, but there was no fire.
He was dying in hell. Think about it when you're holding on to that level.
Exactly.
Anxiety.
And that's what I came to was that he was burning in hell, like that kind of anxiety. So I'm not saying I'm having a dissimilar experience right now, although no hallucinations, y'all be glad to know. Yet there's something that is pressing from the side of me holding on and letting go. It's the gas and the brakes at the same time. So I'm at the edge of the cliff, and you guys know this scene from the movie, gosh, which one is it? Harrison Ford. And he's stepping off the edge of the cliff. And so my experience of my father was that he
Star Wars
never,
movie,
no,
Indiana
no,
Jones.
It's Indiana Jones.
Okay.
And my father never stepped off to find out that there is a net.
Right.
And I'm right there. I'm right at the edge, and some chaos is running up behind Harrison Ford, and he has to make a choice, and he can't see the bridge, and he just has to keep going. And I was trying to share this with Krista off the podcast with you guys today, but she's like, no, get on the microphone.
I'm like, this is what we're talking about today.
This is what we're talking
you're on the
about.
floor having a panic attack. And
I was on the floor.
But it was interesting to get the connection of the past podcasts and the letting go, and because I was like, well, I don't know if I want the New Year's episode to be about anxiety. And then we were both like, well, wait, it's like, if that's what, like, a lot of people are experiencing that in the new year, exactly for what we're talking about, because there is the expectation to create this new vision for the future in the new year, and you can start over. And then, yes, you have to let go. And this is what it looks like in the next step, is the fear and everything gets shook up in your system. And it's the way forward. It's still okay. We're all okay. This is a normal symptom. It doesn't mean stop and go back and grasp what you had, because that wasn't serving you either, or you would have been happy.
Right.
So we're saying the only way to get to the happiness is to walk through this bit of uncomfortableness.
Yeah, this huge amount of discomfort. Let's just say that. And there's nothing wrong with soothing yourself in the moment, because nobody needs to push themselves into a heart attack or push themselves into a full-on panic attack, which honestly I was not having a full-on panic attack. But I was having a big feeling of feelings that were getting too big for me to contain, but it hadn't, I mean, when I've seen other people have panic attacks, they're actually much bigger.
But the reason it goes to that point with other people is because they don't have the tools to stop it when it is at the level of anxiety. Really? Mild anxiety, medium, getting more severe anxiety. If you can't deal with it or don't have tools to release it at that level, then it's going to go to a panic attack where you're hospitalized, and then you're forced to
take drugs to get over it. Which is not what our passion is, dealing with this stuff spiritually and emotionally. And I could tell, and that's why I texted Krista, I could tell this is a spiritual issue for me. This is one of those things where the expression and the desire to do something bangs up against the reality of doing it. And then you're in the process, you're in the experience, right? So letting go. Well, we all think that's so darn fun. Has anybody ever jumped out of a tree? I've jumped out of a tree. Luckily, I had a harness on at the time. But the time between jumping and when the harness caught me, there was a total panic period. Right. My body was just, are you kidding me? And then the harness caught me. And that's what I'm saying. My father never had the experience of the net, of the proverbial bridge being there. And this is what my quest is right now, is that I'm right at the edge of letting go of something. I honestly don't even know what it is. I'm letting go of a way of being in the world that was more protected than I'm now going to be. I'm going to be more vulnerable, more authentic, more something, and more connected to spirit.
And look at his experience. Look how spirit-filled you are. And we can talk about that feeling of not feeling like you have enough spirit at the moment, but look how much you do have and how many tools you have. And then look at your dad and go, he had none of that. So of course he could not jump. Like, you're experiencing the fear of jumping, even knowing and even with full faith. I mean, obviously, it's not full faith at the moment.
I started with full faith.
Right. And then it got challenged, and it goes like, oh, maybe I'm not as faithful as I thought.
Maybe I'm going to die. Maybe I'm going to... I mean, literally, that's the kind of level of survival that this is hitting. It's hitting somewhere in my consciousness that is trying to let go of if I'm a body. That's what I just realized that. It's my nervous system, my sympathetic nervous system is saying, you keep this up and you're going to die. And my parasympathetic nervous system is waiting patiently on the side to take over. And myself, am connected to spirit through my parasympathetic nervous system, through my endorphins and all of the chemistry that opens. And this was weird. I had a dream about this last night. This is so crazy. I forgot. I could see what our brains look like when they're open, and I could see what the channel looks like when it's closed. And the channel with adrenaline, which is where I was having that surge, is completely sealed. And there's no entry point for any good feeling, any spirituality. This is amazing.
It's constricted.
It's completely constricted. So in a physical level, we have a fascial system that shuts us down at 2,000 pounds of pressure.
Meaning it closes in.
It closes in on us.
People can't see your homes.
Oh, you can't see my hands. My hands. So it constricts us with 2,000 pounds of pressure all over our body when the adrenaline kicks in. So I'm walking towards the edge of some cliff. I don't even know what the cliff looks like, but I can feel myself getting closer. And I can feel my body making this choice. And I can feel my cat right now is purring like crazy on my lap. He came over to find out what all this ruckus
What's all the anxiety about?
What's all this ruckus anxiety about? And then I visually in this dream last night, I could see what the system looks like as it opens again. And all of every single fluid and energy and light starts passing through our bodies again when that system opens up. And it's, again, like it's fear on one side, standing at the edge of the cliff, and the complete connection on the other side.
I feel like Spirit was talking to you in that dream, though, saying like, this is what you're going to experience tomorrow. I'm giving you the information ahead of time just so I can kind of prepare your subconscious mind for what's about to happen to you. And then it happens. And now remembering it afterward is like, oh my gosh, I was just told to open and it's going to be okay.
It was. I saw it. Like I could draw you guys pictures.
No, I know in the dream, that's what I'm saying, but I'm saying to you right now in the moment, it's like, can you grab onto that visual?
I can feel it. That's what I was actually trying to say that I can feel it right now by the visual left from the dream. Mm-hmm. I can feel my body changing right now. Like, oh, there comes some space. There's some fluid moving through my system. There's light moving. There's consciousness moving. Everything is calmed down.
So that doesn't sound like somebody who doesn't have a spirit connection. And the reason I want to bring that up is because I don't want people out there in podcast land to go like, well, great. If Katherine is having a moment where she's not feeling spirit or not feeling like she has enough spirit, then I have no hope because I'm starting at the beginning of my spiritual process and finding out what that is. So what I said to you was, I just cannot buy into your belief system that you don't have enough spirit. And what I meant by that was you have a full life of daily practices where you're connecting with spirit. And my sense with what you're experiencing is you're up-leveling. You're in this moment of like, it's not that you're not spirit filled. It's that now you're going into this new level and this new learning. And all of a sudden the 20s, whatever, 30 years of spirit filled practice you've had may not be serving you in the same way anymore because it's not enough. It's like, continuing to go to high school for the rest of your life. And your spirit's like, you're sitting there trying to do high school all over, but I'm sitting here with your PhD ready for you to grab. Are you ready? And so I feel like that's what this dream is about too, of like the opening of you're stepping into this next level of spirit.
Yeah, it's such a great conversation, Krista, and I hope it's translating well into this podcast because the significant difference in my body experience between the two states is beyond compare. Mm-hmm. And when I texted Krista about needing more spirit, I was like, I need the experience of spirit right now. I need to feel connected.
What does that mean to you?
Well, what was happening was because my system was shutting down around the fear as I'm letting go. So you say the thing, you're going to go to a retreat. You sign up for a new class. You have this moment of surge of flow of energy. You're like, I'm so excited. And then the reality hits you of, oh, you don't even know this is what's happening, but you have this surge of fear. I don't know how many of our people have gone to retreats, but how many of you have signed up for a retreat and then had all hell break loose in terms of like getting in the way of you getting there or fears surfacing or all that?
But it could be anything. It could be like, oh, you've decided you're going to go take that dance class you've always wanted to do, and you get brave enough to sign up, and then you're going there and you're like, oh my God, they're going to be better than me. I'm going to make a fool out of myself. It could be anything like that.
You're absolutely right. Anything like that. And that's a great example because I was keeping it in the spiritual realm, but it crosses over. Mm-hmm. It's anything that gets us out to our edge. The letting go is as we press against the edge of our comfort zone, can we just press gently and allow the sort of, what is it? The filament to open instead of punch up against it and be bounced off.
Well, we could make a sexual reference. It's about like that concept of open her.
Yeah. Ooh,
right?
Great book, you guys.
Yes, I love that book. And
we will be talking about it in the new year.
And what's great about the book is it's really just the concept of every woman is available to be opened. Can you access her? What is the way in which she needs to be opened? And it's, is it just, we're not even just talking sex. We're talking
it's
emotional
full relationship
intimacy and everything. Yeah. And it doesn't happen by just going up to her and saying like, I love you. Now open your heart to me and let's do this. And, pushing forward and she's going to be, I can't tell you my true self. I've only known you a day. It's a process of the softening and baby stepping yourself into it.
It is. And I think that's what's so great about this image, because I used to see the edge of my comfort zone as an edge, like a hard edge. And when I was just seeing, when I pressed my hand up against it, it was almost like my hand would just go into it and it would just keep expanding.
You're talking about the veil in the Course of Miracles.
Ah, the veil, of course.
I love that.
So when I go in gently with a lot of self-awareness, I feel really scared. Like, say the truth. I feel really scared. Today, I woke up and I felt really scared. And I didn't feel connected. That doesn't mean I'm not. It just means I couldn't access it. And then to allow sort of the going backwards into, okay, I'm going to stand back on the edge of this cliff for a moment. And I'm going to take some deep breaths. I literally was rolling on a ball on the floor to open my body up to get myself reconnected in my nervous system. And I had to have the space, and Krista was really great about providing it for me, of just, okay, let's just sit here. And, it strikes me, another thing strikes me about this, Krista, is the concept of when two or more are gathered, how miracles happen. And in the Course in Miracles, anything that takes you out of fear is a miracle. And you bring it between two people who are equals, and all people are equals. So Krista comes to me to do the podcast today, and I'm in
like a fun mood. I'm like, "Woo, what are we going to talk about today? Like, this New Year's, and like, let's have something fun to chat about." And I had like topics that we could have, talked about, and I'm witnessing you like in a mild panic and just sitting there, and I'm like, "This is perfect. This is what's being presented to us today."
Yeah, and her encouragement and her loving and her gentleness. And again, that thing that we do so well that you guys, if you like this, get the advantage of is that we pause. When something's happening in the present moment, we don't push through it. And I think in some ways, most of the day I've been trying to push through this fear instead of pausing with it, even though it's tricky.
Pushing through it would have been me going like, we don't have time for you to have this, your heart to be hurting. I'm plugged in, I'm ready to go. Let's record. What do you want to talk about? And you're just sitting there like a deer in headlights, like, how the fuck can I have a conversation right now? Because my heart's beating and everything. Like, that's the pushing that we're talking about.
Right.
And that's where we kind of go the opposite direction. Like, just stop. Because whatever's supposed to come through needs a little bit of time to come through.
Yeah, we really needed the space for this to come through, and I certainly did. And it's great. It's great to share it with you all, because if you took our advice and started letting go to the degree, or even our suggestion, rather, who knows if it was advice, but the suggestion about letting go last week, and you started doing this, you may be in the exact same spot. So the idea is stop and go gently in. But remember what I said about when two or more are gathered, don't be afraid to call a friend. Don't be afraid to call a coach, a counselor, a therapist, whatever you need, so that you can get the support. Because why would you step off a cliff by yourself? Why wouldn't you call in someone to hold space with you and say, you got this?
And we're not even, in my mind, it doesn't even have to be about calling in an actual physical person, because what we're really talking about is source, calling in source into that moment.
Yeah. I hear you, Krista. And I think there also is something about, source is actually, so the sentence is when two or more are gathered in its name. And for me, sometimes it doesn't always take another person, but sometimes it actually takes
Well, I'll
another
take that
person.
back, because when I suggested you get on the ball, and you get on the ball and you're like, oh, and I actually called in spirit. I wasn't saying it out loud to you. I wasn't saying the prayer out loud for everybody to hear because you were going through what you were going through. But I was in my mind calling in spirit to be present and to, work with whatever was coming through you. So in a way,
So you were
I hadn't even
doing
thought of that. So I was invoking spirit. I'm sure you had already invoked it in your own way, but
I wasn't
takes
getting
two.
there. It was like taking two to tango. And so, I mean, that's a really important thing, because one of the most important things that we talk about on this Holy Fuck podcast is partnership. Is what do we do to support each other? We're not supposed to be on this journey alone. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's source, but how do we access each other? And in the life of Jesus and the story of Jesus, depending no matter where you fall on whether it's true or not, the story, if you follow it, Jesus has people everywhere. He has a team. They're called apostles. And there were many more of them we think there were. And there were women and men. And there's so much richness in that. And, some of them hurt him. Some of them showed up for him. That's of them.
The fuck part. I love that you brought up the holy fuck part, because I know that a lot of people think of our podcast as just sex because it's the fuck, we have that in the title. But really, when that name came to us, it was more than just sex. What we loved about it was that it encompassed all the fucking shit that happens in the world. And how do we bring the holiness to it? And so Jesus was experiencing all the challenges in the real world with all of his people around him. And that's what we call the fucking real gritty stuff that's happening in this world. And then we get to experience the holiness of him too.
So when we really let ourselves settle in right now, Krista comes in the door. I'm having a disconnected from myself and from spirit experience. Mm-hmm. Krista comes in the door, and rather than pushing me through the experience or trying to change the experience, instead, she literally sat on the couch. She said, "Why don't you get on the ball?" Which is sitting right in the middle of my living room, and I couldn't see it. And I stretched out on the ball, and she got on the couch, and we together just took some space, and she called in spirit in that moment. And the way that we understand this is that the consciousness floods yourself, so that the unit of you that is walking through the world, when you're depleted or anxious, has no spirit really in it, because you've shut down by squeezing yourself, you shut it down. And I've been trying all day to get back there, and it was just getting worse and worse.
That's your humanness trying to solve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then we add the holiness. So this is the fuck. Like, if I fuck someone, I'm going to feel better. If I beat someone else, I'm going to feel better. If I eat something, I'm going to feel better. Nothing is going to happen through the body.
Right.
It's as soon as Krista settles in, holds space, and calls in spirit, all of that opens, and what's naturally already present in the space comes right back into my body. Mm-hmm. Now, my body makes space for that by relaxing, by
letting
opening,
go.
by letting go, and by allowing the naturally occurring chemistry of peace and joy and loving, which is your serotonin, your dopamine, your oxytocin, dopamine, your oxytocin to flood you and open you, because that's what happens. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny when we go back to the book about Open Her. Mm-hmm. What they're talking about in that book is if your woman can trust you, if you can give her what she needs to open, you will then be sharing the space with her spirit, her highest self, her
not
loving.
with her fears and her hurts and her
exactly.
past experiences.
And not lying, not sitting in a room with a woman who's lying on a ball trying to find her connection. For men or for women, whoever you're related to, we're just really good friends, but we're spiritual partners in that we understand calling in that spirit and taking a deep breath and being in our humanness with spirit present allows me the opportunity to finally let go. The more I pushed against it all morning, it was only getting worse. So this is the tricky part. Spirit always present. You can't always access it by yourself.
And you can.
Sometimes you can.
So it's available, but like in that moment, you were in physical pain and it wasn't on the forefront of your mind to think to go do that, to call it in.
And I really question this, Krista, because
I love this.
Because the saying, when two or more are gathered, I think there's something about two consciousness. You know, when Jesus would pray with someone, or as a minister, when I pray with someone, it's so different than when I pray by myself.
Right.
When I get to hold a consciousness with someone else, when we say a prayer before we start our podcast, and we are going to define prayer for you sometimes, so it doesn't sound like the thing where you lie on your face in the ground and you supplicate yourself to whatever. And yet today, maybe it did look a little like that, where I could not sort it out by myself. And the presence of my spiritual friend could help me sort it.
I guess I just don't want people to think like if they are alone somewhere that God isn't available if they don't have someone else. So I love, yes, power in numbers. And when we come together as two, it amplifies. But I don't want someone who's suffering to go, well, I don't have a friend today, so I guess I'll just have to suffer until tomorrow until they can come over and help me through it. I want, maybe that's part of calling in spirit is
asking for
delivering the friend or delivering
a stranger who will
postman
give you.
Might just show up and be available to talk. Like we don't know what that support system looks like. But if you are sitting alone and you're suffering, opening up to spirit and asking for guidance or asking to be shown the way or to be brought the person that can, give you the little nugget that you're looking for, I believe that's available.
Absolutely. And I don't want to deny that. That's absolutely available. I noticed also that one of the things that you pray with is that you pray to be opened. Mm-hmm. You don't pray to be relieved from fear, because in the spiritual realm, actually fear doesn't exist. The spiritual realm is holiness and loving and peace. It's a field of energy
so when
that
you say,
we call God.
God, let go of the fear, and God's going, I don't know what it is that you're wanting me to let.
I can't see no fear.
I can't see fear. And the fear has to remain with you so that you can continue learning the lesson that there's nothing to be fearful of.
Right.
And when you can step into that space, which we're not there yet, that's the practice that that's what we're working toward. But as we believe that more deeply each day that we practice, and we let go of the fear quicker and more gentler. Is that a word? Gentler. When we do that, then spirit can come in and support us quicker.
Yeah, and I love the aspect that you mentioned. I want to reiterate it also, is that spirit is always present. It's what we're up to in the space.
Whether we're available to
That's
it,
what I mean.
or remembering that it's available.
And if we've gotten so scared, for whatever reason, my nervous system was just tweaked today, mm-hmm. If we can't feel it, this is where the thing we call quote unquote faith is the spiritual realm is still always present. So just because you can't feel it in a certain moment, I said something to Krista like, I need more spirit. And she's like, no, spirit's
you just need to remember
here.
The spirit that you are.
And I couldn't. That's just what was true
but
about
that the veil too? A little bit. It's like we think that spirit or God or source of love is outside of us, and really it's just this thin veil between us and heaven. And if we just walk through it, it's like right there.
It's in us.
Yeah.
It's all around us. And yet we can squeeze our awareness of it all the way to the point where we feel separate. Mm-hmm. And that's the danger point for lots of people. It's where people's anxiety becomes panic attacks. It's where depression becomes despair. It's where instead of just a downswing in energy one day, you actually go all the way to what is life worth. Mm-hmm. And when we don't feel our spirit, when we don't feel our kind of capital S self, when I was as disconnected as I maybe have been in years this morning, wow, the feeling of separation is so frightening to someone who's used to feeling connected. Mm-hmm. And I start to really wonder, Krista, like lots of people live where they don't feel connected.
In separation.
In separation a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons we're even doing this podcast.
Well, I think it's interesting, if you don't mind me mentioning, that you were talking about like feeling like you were missing your community.
Yeah.
And us really realizing like this podcast is our new community and the desire to connect more fully with it.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that Krista and I have been really focused on for the new year is how do we get more connected to you? Rather than this being this one-way street where we're communicating our experience to you, it's how do we get experience back from you? How do we share with you? How do we find out who you are so that we're actually more of service to ourselves and to the world, to you in general?
Which bit for us builds our connection to spirit.
Yeah.
Like when we're able to, the more we get to talk about these concepts and the more people we're talking to, I don't know for you, I'm sure for you, we feel more connected. And that we have more purpose in the world. When I'm sitting in my bedroom trying to write or journal or, be creative. Would you say masturbate? That's a very spiritual experience. I feel very connected at that moment. I call in the light, I get centered in spirit, and then I pull out my pink vibrator.
Jesus, come home to mama.
Jesus. Oh, God, people are going to have some issues with that. Oh, well, holy fuck.
Y'all know that, really the story of Jesus that we live with is the story of a man who was alive in his life. He had friends. He had companions. He may have been a lover of a woman. We can never get that clear. So we're just going to wonder about it forever.
Never said he was abstinent,
But they did say he kissed her like he didn't kiss anyone else. That's in the actual, one of the Gospels, in the Bible, not one of the ones they skipped and left out of the Bible.
Right.
So there was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of upset between some of the men and the way that in that society, men were used to being treated. Men were used to being held as better and separate. And Jesus kept coming in and saying, no, I want to hang out with the chicks. I want to hang out with the girls. I love these ladies.
He's no dummy.
He's no dummy. That's right. Well, and with such a spiritual full life, he was very connected to his own feminine ministries and his own feminine ways. And I don't mean that he was feminine. I mean, he had the awakened feminine within him. He was very clearly a man and carried himself in the world that way. And Mary Magdalene was able to carry the reflection in the whole feminine ways as a woman. And she too then had a masculine part that worked with healing him. Mm-hmm. So there was a generous amount of sharing energy back and forth between the two of them. We're telling you this story because it's obviously present today to tell you.
Where two or more are gathered.
Where two or more are gathered. And, the story that we have about Jesus, he was very much alive in his life. He was in trouble all the time for being very alive, and may have been one of the reasons he was taken from us off this planet was that he had the desire to be amongst people, to be with one another, to be with gatherings, to not be separate, and to bring home the word of the spiritual. The spiritual life, the spiritual life.
Did you get Southern all of a sudden?
I got some spiritual.
I
got some spiritual. It comes in a little bottle. But to bring home the message of spirituality is that our beauty and our love and our joy is in one another, that we are one. Mm-hmm. That when I guess it's also referred to as the golden rule, or it could be the second commandment, which is love thy neighbor as thyself. Mm-hmm. It means love your neighbor because they are yourself. Right. You are one with them. And if you separate from that, you won't feel yourself. The Course in Miracles had this sweet line this morning. It was something like, and even one person is left out, the kingdom is not whole.
Mm-hmm. Just not healed.
It's not healed. It's not whole. So all of us are yearning still for drawing each other in and seeing all the diversity of humanity and becoming one with all of it. So we've been going on and on about this, but I got to tell you, I'm the most grateful person right now because my experience just before we started the podcast, and then just before we started the podcast, after Krista and I took a moment that she insisted on to really take the leap, to let go in a different way, to feel myself come back fully into the Spirit, to allow myself to be filled again with light.
I feel like there's a little bit of like you picking up on the mass consciousness of the energy and needing to have this experience so that it can be talked about. Because like if you didn't have it today and we just put out manifest the future, let go, and then we just went on with 2019 and there's other people out there like, okay, well, you told us to let go and now our life is falling apart. Like your story today is serving people. So it like literally had to happen in order to give this next piece of information of the what can happen, what people can express or experience. And that there's the other side that's coming.
Yeah.
If we have faith.
And that it's right there. And it never went away.
Right.
It's us that shuts it out rather than it is never shutting us out.
Yeah, it's always there, whether we can see it or not.
And it does really sometimes take someone else, like a friend or a companion. Even sometimes our animals will break us open like this and help us bring this out. So we just want to give our blessings to you. And we know this process is not easy. And we are sharing every step of it with you so that you can see that you can be free in a way that my dad could never be free because he couldn't ever check to see if this net was there. And now in a way that I'm freer, even right now today, because I had a moment to pause and then with Krista's help, step forward into a place where I could open again and feel the freedom again flowing through my body and myself. I'm connected. I'm here. I'm trusting. I'm whole. My brain's back online.
You look better.
I probably have color in my face. I probably looked like death wormed over.
I feel like you're doing a commercial right now for KristaKimCoaching.com.
Oh, am I?
But I do want to say to our listeners, if you are having these experiences in the process of letting go, we're here, and reach out to us and send us a message. And if there's something that we can help you with or give you a little nugget to think about, we're happy to do that. We care about you, and it's not like we're just throwing out all this information and saying like, hey, okay, well, we told you the information, go deal with it. It's like, no, here's some information that we're sharing on the podcast. And if you want to do this work on a deeper level, we are here. Send us a message. We'll try and get back with you. And if you think you want even further assistance, we're both healers. We're both coaches, and it's what we do for a living. And you can check out our individual websites and see if anything is on there that you connect with. And it is a time of new beginnings in the new year, and it's a great time to do this type of work and get assistance with a professional that can really launch your life forward in the new year and give some structure to your growth and some support to your growth.
Yeah, and I think what also deserves to be said here is that sometimes you're the one having the experience and sometimes you're the one assisting the experience. So today, Krista was the one who was assisting me in completing the experience that I was in. And then there are other days when it flows the other direction, that we're both in a very well-traveled road. So we trust each other very much. And you can trust us also. If you know I've walked through this place, then you know I can walk with you.
Right. So KatherineMcClellan.com.
Oh, that's KatherineMcClellan.com. Now that we're mentioning our .coms today. It's something
Wasn't
new.
planning on
it's
it.
Something new for the new year, apparently.
But yeah, we should, because our goal in life is to be of service. This is why we're doing the podcast. So we're not doing anybody any good if we never mention that. This is why we're here on the planet.
We're here to be of service.
Yeah.
And that is a great joy to us, and to give and receive. And we hope that you are too. We invite you to try that on if you're not, or not fully embracing that yet. And just give yourself to love.
Spread the love,
Spread
everyone.
Spread the love. We love you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Do you want the opportunity to see the gals of Holy Fuck in person? If so, go to holyfuckpodcast.com and join our mailing list so you can find out when and where these goddesses will be transforming lives next. And yes, I know, I'm talking about myself in third person. Open your browser, type in holyfuckpodcast.com, click on mailing list, and give us your most trusty email, not that bogus one you give to Walmart. So sign up now. Not tomorrow. Now. Now, now, now. Thank you.